Hello mech fans and welcome to the Valhalla Club. Grab a Fusionaire and join us as we talk Battletech and the latest happenings around the Colorado Battletech community. Alright everybody, thanks for joining us in the Valhalla Club today. I'll be your bartender for this episode. I'm Mike the Viking. Today with us we've got Dave Cerberus.
Hello.
We've got BourBen.
Howdy, howdy.
And joining us again for another episode is Alex.
Howdy, everybody.
So for this mid-month episode, since Dave wasn't able to join us for the main episode, I don't think Alex was had availability for our initial recording. So we're going to get their LVO recap in. Alex got second place overall and won best painted. So we're going to get his recap from LVO, and then we're going to talk about some Hobby Burnout afterwards. Since you guys weren't on the last episode, let's start out with the pile of shame. What kind of hobby work have you been able to accomplish? Let's start with Dave.
So in the lead up to LVO, I had to paint most of my LVO list. Some of the pictures I had posted up. So obviously there were the two Ares, the Scaffas, the Black Wolf battle armors, and let's see what else was there. I did prime about 15 clan mechs in green, so they're going to get the camo striping treatment probably this weekend. And beyond that, beyond prepping for LVO and getting some mechs prime, that's about all that I've had time to do. And I definitely haven't done anything since we got back. And thankfully, everything made it back from LVO in one piece, and I only had to make one repair when we got to LVO. And that was because one of my Ares arms fell off. So had to fix that in the hotel room.
Womp womp. Yeah, I don't think anybody's done much of anything when we got back from LVO. Just hit the reset button. Alex, how's your hobby work been going?
Yeah, my hobby work has been just about the same as David's here. Not much for me on the Battletech front, at least. I've got 10 or so unpainted miniatures, kind of a weird mix of IS and Clan, from the beginner box that came out with the Vindicator, some of the LVO swag, a random Ironwinds Metal Locust I bought forever ago, and I'm just kind of trying to decide on a new force to build them into, or maybe my existing paint schemes fit them into. Just, waiting for some inspiration to come along, figure out what to do with it. Been working on some hobby progress for some other systems in the time being, but it'll come. They will get painted. My pile of shame must decrease in size.
Well, we can't have a segment called Pile of Shame if there isn't a pile of shame.
Indeed, yes.
Has anybody gotten any of those new force packs that have been coming out? My EH came in yesterday, and I should be getting my Rough Riders and Kellhounds soon from Ares. I'm excited about those.
I picked up a Hansen's Rough Riders today, actually, at Gamers Haven.
Oh, very nice.
And I have an ELH pack as well.
Yeah, I went this morning over to Barnes & Nobles and picked up an ELH pack here in Westminster. So I'm willing to trade 3 out of 4 mechs out of that if anybody wants it.
What's your guys' thought on that jumper? You think you're gonna paint it up in the jump stance or without the plume?
I think obviously I only have the Hansons, so it's just the Hatchet Man. I will probably paint that up as a jumper because I already have one that's not jumping, and I don't see myself using a Hatchet Man all that often. So might as well have fun with it.
Yeah, I think I've decided that all the jumping mechs, I'm going to leave them in jump mode just because jump plumes look cool, and those are huge. But when you look at them straight on, they're no taller than an Assault. So like the jumping Thunderbolt is the exact same height as the Banshee in that same box.
I saw the picture on, I think it was Battletech Customs, where someone took the Thunderbolt and they flipped it upside down on the jump plume, and it looks awesome. And I'm totally going to do that with it when I get it.
It's a piloting skill 8 right there.
Hey, I think it would be awesome if there was a modified table for piloting roll fails, where like if you have a jump mech and you just accidentally activate your jump jets and you just go randomly off in one direction, and then you have to roll another piloting check to land with like a +4. I think that would be awesome.
Look, man, we already spent enough time dealing with falls and everything else on the classic side of thing, and you want to make it twice as difficult? Come on.
Just want to make it funny.
I think you get that in some of the Mech Warrior stuff.
Jump off the board on accident.
Yeah, really.
All right. Well, that should wrap us up for the Pile of Shame segment. So let's just hop into this LVO recap for you two. Let's start out with overall thoughts and general experience, and then we'll move into the rounds. Dave, you want to start us off with overall comments?
So as far as LVO is concerned, I had a great time. The Rio was not as bad as I kind of expected it to be. I did a lot of kind of recon by looking at a bunch of reviews of the Rio and some video walkthroughs, and they painted a very different picture of the hotel than what it actually was. It was very pleasant when we got there. Most of the restaurants were open. The room was actually pretty great. I was rooming with Charles and Mike, and obviously we've already talked about or heard about Mike's little paint booth setup that he had in the room. And as far as the venue is concerned, I went and helped do a little bit of setup on, I want to say it was Thursday morning. Yeah, I think it was Thursday morning. So that main room that the Warhammer players were in was massive. I've never seen a gaming hall that big set up that way before. And the amount of stuff that the FLG guys brought in to make this entire event happen was really amazing. So even the hall that we were in with the setup that we had, it was still large. And it was really awesome. The event itself, I think, went really smoothly. The Wolfnet guys set up a really good space, and it was unfortunate that after round one we had to move everything, but it went relatively smoothly, and we got reset up between rounds, and it continued on. And overall, I thought LVO was a lot of fun. It was really great meeting everybody. It was really cool to finally meet the guys from Armor Up and from Wolfnet, and to get to hang out with people that we hear and listen to and talk to on Discords, and to get that interaction personally was really great. So yeah, I had a great time.
Hell yeah. Alex, what you got?
Yeah, overall it was a very positive, fun experience. Very good. I don't want to go into too much detail. I think that we're going to talk through some of the Hobby Burnout stuff later, where I'll probably bring a little bit more of it up. But I guess if I were thinking through the experience, some regrets. I guess I maybe would have stayed for a little longer on Saturday after all. There was some pretty neat looking events going on Saturday that I jetted out for maybe a little early. I was there, I guess, just only for Saturday, mostly as a full day, but coming in late on Thursday or midday on Thursday and leaving midday on Saturday didn't give me as much time as I would have liked, I guess, after seeing all the stuff that went down on Saturday, all the cool things. Yeah, but really good experience. Really great to meet a bunch of people whose voices I've heard for hours on end on the other end of the podcast here. And also some other people, everyone too, not just the podcasters. Great time. Great players. Everyone was nice, fun.
Hell yeah. All right, so let's move into the 350 recap portion. Let's go over what list you brought. We'll keep going with the same way we've been doing it so far. We'll go Dave, then Alex. So Dave, what list did you bring?
So I brought a Wolf Star League Ilklan era list, and I was one of those guys that brought a double Ares list. So I had a Ares Zeus, an Ares Hera, Vulture E was my flak unit. I brought an industrial mech. Good old Carl made an appearance with the Lumberjack LM4C. I had 2 Scaffa hover tanks, the J models, 2 Gabriel hovercraft, a J-27 ordnance transport, the gun trailer Aero 4 variant, 2 Black Wolf heavy mortar battle armors, 2 Kukulane support armors, and then 2 Warrior H10s.
You and that dual Ares list, man. Let's see. So, Alex, what did you bring to the tournament?
For this tournament, I brought a 12th Ghost Regiment list. So I began kind of my soul searching for the list back in the late summer last year. I was thinking through things like, do I want to bring SLDF or maybe a Succession Wars pirate list? I knew I wanted to feature a lot of stuff from the 1990s, 2000s MechWarrior franchise, and settled on the 12th Ghost Regiment because they have a lot of those 90s to 2000 MechWarriors listed in the Jihad era available still, and they had a really cool backstory on exactly how they kind of came to stop being a part of the Battletech history. But as far as actual list contents go and what was in there, I went with pretty much only Inner Sphere Tech, Iron Winds metals units as much as possible, ended up being entirely Iron Wind metals in the end, and mostly Combined Arms Force. So I had a Sunder 1-0 at skill 4 as kind of the bully of the group. Lots of armor, lots of damage, and still movement of 8. A Mauler 1K at skill 3. Pretty slow at 6 without jump, movement of 6, but decent amount of damage and overheat potential. Avatar 1 OF at skill 3. Decent damage potential, but pretty weak. Has jump jets, 8-inch movement, a little bit of flak as well for some of those fast scenarios. Take down VTOLs. A Chimera 1S, definitely the runt of the group. Not very point efficient mech at skill 3, 31 points, but only does 3, 2, 1 for the damage profile, short, medium, long, and no specials at all to speak of. But hey, had to be included because it was in MechWarrior 4, so it made it in the cut. A Charger 1A1, which I think is a very great bargain buy at 18 PV for skill 4 or 22 PV at skill 3. Amazing role player. I'll probably talk about some more in the games as we go on. 2 Tokugawas. They are some pretty classic House Kurita designs. 1 at skill 4, 1 at skill 2. Different variants for each. A Sprint Scout helicopter interdictor. That was my cheap insurance against C3 networks, but my only ECM unit in the list, so someone with a lot of ECM would have probably cleaned my clock with that. A Ripper infantry transport. Sort of the purpose of being able to transport one or a few units, or also being able to do some damage with 1-1 short medium profile. A Heavy Hover APC at skill 7, whose only purpose was to move around a bunch of the heavy infantry, heavy urban response platoon, which I took at skill 4. That's the heavy infantry that's really good with the plasma. Just recently got a points increase. The Void medium battle armor, I brought 1 stand of that, the standard one. It's a 1-1 damage profile with stealth and 8 jumping profile. J27 ordnance transport at skill 5, and 2 field medics at skill 4. So those 3 units all together were 3 PV. We could talk a whole lot about 1 PV units and my thoughts on them at a different time, probably later in this podcast. Not something I'm super proud of, but they're on my list. And motorized field artillery sniper. It's a infantry type unit that has artillery. So brought at skill 3. Can't take the standstill bonus. So best case scenario with dedicated spotter tag, I'm looking at 8s to hit with a field artillery sniper for a chance of 2 damage. And that sums up my list.
Sounds good. All right, let's just go right into the games. So round 1 was domination. Dave, what'd you have for domination?
So I went against Damien, and I brought my pretty standard single Ares with the 2 Scaffas, and I think I had my Vulture with me. Unfortunately, I lost my notes that I had taken from the game, so this will all be going off memory. So anybody that I played, if I get this wrong, sorry. But the game was relatively quick. I beat Damien on turn 3 because I pushed him a little aggressively, and he brought a lot of heavy units because he knew I was going to bring an Ares. And what ended up happening was I took 3 of the 5 OATs in round 2, and then on round 2, he also got a lucky shot off on one of my Scaffas and killed the crew. So that was really unfortunate. It was a tack, and then dead crew. So that was a quick 35 points that he got from me. And then he made a mistake and came off of the OATs in turn 3, and I got one of my hovercrafts over onto the 4th oat that I needed. And I think, let me pull up the stats for the first round. I don't think I killed anything in the first round. So I killed 26 PV of his. I think I got half points on one of his units. But I powered through the game and got it on objectives, but didn't really get any MOV out of the game. He got 35 out of me, and I got 26 out of him. So I think we were one of the first couple of games that were finished.
Sounds good. Alex, how was game 1 for you?
Game 1 for me, I had the pleasure of playing against Max from our local Colorado group here. Funny fact, we actually played this domination scenario in Dave's garage, I guess maybe 4 months prior, with his old previous Capellan list before he revamped it. So this one was a pretty fun game. I was playing on the Mars map, and we had a lot of the very tall terrain pieces, which we set up pretty much surrounding the center objective on domination, with a few little ones off to the side, and the classic Annihilator turret in the back. Max had a Annihilator standing on a very tall, skinny piece of terrain, which I don't believe he could legally get down from because it was so tall, more than 2 levels or 4 inches high, 2 inches high, whatever. It was a pretty high little piece it was on. So this is a game that once it got kicked off, I almost lost twice in the first 2 or 3 rounds. I was able to take my first 2 objectives in my deployment zone while he took the other 3, and I started losing my left side of that one. So when I started losing that left side, he started moving ones out to try to take that 4th one and finish the game right then and there. And if it were not for some lucky shooting on my part to knock off the one that would have made that 4th capture, there's 2 chances there where I would have lost. Eventually, I did not lose on those 2 with the fast movers coming in to capture it, and was able to push back across the middle and had enough stuff left to put something on the remaining 5 for a single turn and force a split of fire. A very close game, a lot of back and forth. We had a lot of destruction. Great fun game for us.
Alrighty, sounds like some decent round 1 games. Game 2 was Headhunter. Dave, how was that?
Well, I fought Alex in that, and it was I'm ashamed to say I got a little butt hurt because Alex was using a very valid tactic against me. I brought my double Ares with my Black Wolves and the Scaffas, and I don't remember if I had the Gabriels or not, but Alex took a very defensive posture, and I had to waddle my Ares fat asses across the entire map to get to him. So it took, let's see, if the round is 80 minutes, we had 29 minutes left by the time I got to the other side of the map, because it just took that long to get the Ares across there, because I didn't sprint at all, because I knew if I sprinted, that would give Alex the opportunity to just pop out and just probably knock off one of my Ares right away. But the game, well, Alex, why don't you say it from your side, and then we can get into the combat.
So I'll chime in here and say what I did wasn't defensive. It was actually downright cowardly and unhonorable, in my opinion. So here in the Colorado group, we've seen the Ares, a 6-pack made its way around of everyone, having some Ares action. So I kind of groaned a little bit internally. I'm like, oh, matched up round 2 against David with a double Ares list. Dang it. That kind of feeling, right? So I kind of try to think through what I could possibly do to have a chance here, because I know that there's gobs of armor. I didn't know if there would be 2 Ares, each one a commander, what I'd see exactly, but I was pretty sure that if I tried to engage in an open field or advance, I'd have 0 chance of basically getting any kind of real points in this. So my other options would be I could be completely non-competitive and, a total, bad apple, negative plague experience guy, and just completely wait inside of the little nest I made. I stacked up two terrain pieces on top of each other, are nearly the exact same size, and basically hid my whole force behind. And I even considered do I want to stay here to make some kind of big stinky poo-poo pants, loser mean point about how Ares are mean, took my lunch money and and push my face in the dirt all the time. But the other option I thought of was, well, what I could do is wait here for a little bit, wait for David to advance, and maybe find an opportunity whenever I can win initiative after he's moved something and juke to one side or the other and get at least a couple of his units out of the firing arc so I get a good first volley out. Well, that's what I went with, was a third option, kind of a good balance between being able to, not get annihilated in the open field with, a giant rock of an Ares and the hard place of all the Scaphas that can jump and move around with some pretty hard-hitting battle armor right behind me as soon as I come out. So find a balance between that option and the, sit there and be a poo-poo pants and care to come out of my little turtle shell hole option. Anyway, so I did end up coming out, and we had a pretty good battle. Ended up being a 4-3 David's win result. But it did take quite a long time. It was about 45 minutes or maybe a little longer than the game before we actually got into combat. And it's something I'm not crazy proud about the way that I played this. I want to play this to have fun, and sitting around 45 minutes is not really fun. And that's something that I apologize to and is infuriating and is terrible. And one of the reasons why I'm wondering, like, if one of the things that made me question about the tournament scene a little bit, I have to make this decision: do I want to play for points, want to play for fun? And I made a decision to play kind of maybe a little bit for both here. Anyway, I'm sorry, David. This was
hey, you killed the Ares, so
yeah, it took 2 rounds to kill the Ares versus 3 or 4, which I was fearing it would take if I couldn't, put all fire on at once when I wanted to.
Well, I think
I'm really sorry it took so long to wait there and all the turmoil it caused.
Well, I think the Ares definitely is more of a psychological weapon than it is a really effective weapon on the battlefield, because
on me, very psychologically impacts me.
Well, it's because it's so easy to hit, but it's got so much armor and so much structure that it does take a concentrated effort to destroy it. Yes, but at the same time, you can only really effectively field them at skill 4. So against a TMM 3, you're looking at 7s at short range, 9s at medium range. So it takes... They're not great.
Yeah, very, very fair point, but I'm more worried about Scaphas and whatever that battle armor you had that did
Cuculanes,
I think. Yeah. I'm more worried about those guys at short range than I'm about an Ares at medium or long.
Honestly, if you hadn't come out of...
behind me, if I came out of my little tiny hidey hole turtle shell.
When I brought my Ares around to the... Because I actually think I only had one Ares. Was it 1 or 2? I'm trying to remember.
We played King of the Hill back at your place last summer?
No. At LVO.
I thought you brought a list with 2, didn't you?
I brought a list of 2, but in our game,
you brought 1, and the whatever that Black Wolf battle armor was your second commander. Yeah.
So I got the Scaphas and the Ares over to the left side of the hills that you had built, and I was just about ready to run the Scaphas up and over. And because you had your avatar and your other unit just backed up against the hill. I was like, well, that's a perfect back shot. I'll just go up the hill, drop the battle armor, and then you would have, God, what would that be? So it's 2 from the Scapha, 2 from each Scapha, so that's 4, and then 3 from each battle armor, which would be 6. So it would have been 10 damage plus another 4 for the rear shots. Yeah. And if you hadn't come out of the hill when you did, that was going to be my next move, because the Ares was just about ready to round the corner.
Yeah. That would have been a pretty tight scrum. If you would have come over that hill for sure, that would have been pretty deadly. So that was right when I sprung out of there and was able to get some of those flanking shots on the Ares and make it a little bit different of a game there. But yeah, it was a slow crawl to get there for sure. But that I didn't really anticipate that tactic either. That would have, if I would have waited one more turn, that would have been pretty crazy, and I would definitely walked away with a lot less objective points, I think.
Yeah, because those Scaphas, they are hard to kill because they got that reflective armor, so they take 1 less damage just off the bat, and then they've got TMM 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they are rough to kill. I definitely would have lost both the Cuculanes in that situation, because they would have had no way of taking any sort of non-infantry cover or anything like that. But they would have definitely gotten the job done.
Yeah, it was a great game though. It was my only loss of the day and my only loss to only game against someone that finished in the top 10 too, as well.
You're lucky. I faced damn near everybody in the top 10. I think actually Damien was the only person outside of the top 10 that I actually faced.
Wow.
Now, Dave, I know when we practiced a few months back, I think it was in December, for Headhunter for our practice game, you had brought the 2 Aries.
I did.
With
against Ben.
With your meat shield. Well, no, when me and you played at Gamers Haven, you had we rolled Headhunter, and you made your meat shield battle armor your commanders.
Oh yeah, and then I just stood the Aries on top of them when the battle armor died.
So that's what I was anticipating you to do when Headhunter was rolled. What made you change from that tactic to what you did at the actual tournament?
Because I knew I was fighting Alex, and I know that Alex is a rather tactical person. I also knew he didn't like Aries, so I didn't want to. I didn't want to bring both because, God, that would have taken forever if I'd brought both. Looking back on the game now, if I had to waddle 2 Aries all the way across the map, that would have taken probably the same amount of time, but I think the game was pretty fun with the Scaffas and the single Aries.
For the first 45 minutes, I don't think we thought it was very fun.
No, I was not a happy camper, and I was a bit salty, but that's okay. I bought you a beer later.
Yeah, you did. Thank you. And I mean, it wasn't totally undeserved either. I wasn't playing, in my opinion, super honorably or fun either. So it's definitely something where there's no ill will felt my way, and I don't think you should feel bad.
No.
Because I did bad stuff too. Or I did bad stuff, not you.
It's a game. It's a game. We mark it up and we go on. I had a crappy next 2 games, and you had 2 really good games. So,
well, at least it ended up being good in the long run. All right. So game 3 was the bunkers. How was that, Dave?
So I played Phil on bunkers, and I got relatively hosed. So I used my usual tactic that I do with the Aries, and I put a piece of terrain right in between all of my bunkers, and I deployed the Aries on top of that terrain and walked him out into the middle. The problem was I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And Phil was hitting everything. So my 2 warriors that were dropping my infantry got smoked. I missed really easy shots with the Aries to stop him from getting into bunkers. And yeah, so that one was relatively quick. Congrats to Phil. He kicked my ass. So I lost, I think it was, God, let me see. Phil got 2 of my bunkers and I got none of his. So yeah, I put a couple of damage points on his bunkers just out of desperation, but once he took out my 2 bunkers, the game was pretty much over.
Bum, 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 bum. All right, Alex, how's bunkers for you?
All right, for my 3rd round, I had the pleasure of playing at Chandler from the On the Origins of BattleMech podcast and Wolfnet's Charlie Company, Cider Company. We played on the lava-themed map with some trees, some rough patches, and some rather big lava hills. Train placement approach here. It's actually something that Dave and I worked on a week or 2 beforehand on how to best arrange your terrain for bunkers. I took the biggest hill I could find and put it between my bunkers, parked the bulk of my 4-second shoot things well on there, my things that were not really intended for any kind of capping thing, any kind of capping action. They were all able to start actually on top of the hill and work their way forward into a nice spot between all 3 bunkers with unobstructed line of sight to all of my bunkers and a good sight line down the board as well. My general game approach was to put the field medics and J27 to serve as blocks for my rear 2 bunkers while fighting through the middle of the field or taking down anything making a move on the bunkers. I'd have my VTOLs and my Void battle armor move up the field and attempt to make more of the offensive bunker plays into the opponent's bunkers. The game went pretty much the way I had intended it for the 2 and the way I kind of hoped that it would go. Chandler pushed out with some pretty stiff opposition in the center of the field, and we had a good fight for the first several turns. They had some good pushing out on to some trees on my right side, and a good flank on the left. I was a little lucky with the dice rolls, able to put down most of it, but he did get a very sneaky elemental into the center bunker and planted the bombs and got those on me. In the end, I didn't get the last bunker before the game was over. There was a Thunderbolt variant C, I think, Thunderbolt Charlie on his end that was holding down the last one and keep me from getting into it. But in the end, I was able to take the victory with 3 objective points. And also, a shout out for the taco trucks that Charlie Company Cider Company was giving out. I'll have to get back in touch with those franchising opportunities.
Those taco trucks are a hit.
They were awesome.
Yeah. Those are the same taco trucks that was printed out for what was local event was that?
Was it Battle for December? It was Battle for the Sphere.
Yeah, it was Battle for the Sphere too. This is the exact same taco trucks, and those things are just a hit, man.
They were really good. It was especially great that the way they were painted. Did you guys get a billboard too?
No billboard for me, no.
Oh,
I didn't play anyone from the Charlie Company Cider Company crew, so I was not graced with one, but they looked amazing.
Yeah, I got one of the billboards and one of the taco trucks. So,
and the commercial that Phil made for Charlie Company was great. I don't know if you guys saw that yet.
That was good.
Yeah, that was great. It's so good.
All right, game 4 was Hold the Line. Dave, how'd that go?
Horror, because I was dumb and made a stupid mistake.
Ooh, what was that?
So, well, I was playing Ed, and Ed had his SRM launchers, which were devastating. I'm pretty sure he killed my Ares in that game. We had a lot of good back and forth on that one. He brought most of his force. We had a piece of terrain in the center. I was using my Ares to guard the center token, and my lumberjack to guard the left-hand token, and the rest of my Scaffas and Gabriels were running around just harassing him. So he and I did a lot of back and forth. The real kind of meat of the game came down at the very end when I got one of my Scaffas over to the back end and planted it on one of his tokens, and he got one of mine on the right hand side, and then at the very end he had his stupid Savannah Master that ran over and sat on top of my left hand token, and I forgot about it. So the very last turn, I had an Ares ready to do a full overheat shot. So it was the Zeus. It was going to be a full 12 damage. And what happened was I got tunnel visioned on his rifleman, and I full bore into that rifleman instead of the Savannah Master that was 8 inches to my left. So when the game ended, I'm looking around the board and I just shit.
Tunnel vision is a bitch.
Yep, I realized that the Savannah Master was right there. My Ares hadn't moved, so I was effectively a skill 3 with 12 damage output, and I shot the wrong target. So I ended up losing, I think it was 1-2, and Ed took the 2, and I took the 1. So good job, Ed. I messed that up, and you well deserved that victory.
Metal Ed for the win. What?
Yep.
All right, Alex.
Those freaking SRM carriers, they hit like a freaking brick wall.
Oh, absolutely. I love me some SRM carriers. Alex, hold the line. Game 4.
All right, so I believe just like David, my 4th round was also against another Charlie Company, Cider Company individual with Brett, also from On the Order of Battle Mix podcast as well. My terrain placement approach for this, we were playing on the desert terrain map with some big terrain pieces and some trees. Well, actually I had, I think, 2 trees or 3 trees and some rough terrain that we played as trees because we didn't feel like trying to figure out gravel piles or rough or mud or something like that. We made a kind of a decision, hey, do you want to play these as trees? I think it was actually his idea maybe, or maybe it was both of our ideas. And Aaron came around to kind of like, hey, you're playing these wrong, and like, oh yeah, we know, we didn't want to play we don't want to read the rules. We're too tired at this point to learn how to play on mud or gravel, I guess. But fortunately, it was all fine. The game was still valid, I believe. So my big terrain placement approach here was to place the big pieces of terrain such that I could have it mostly on my half and get on top of it, have some partial cover and look through most of the middle of the board, but also give kind of a firing lane on my left side to where I could have a unit that could either maneuver to shoot down that lane or come back and cover the objectives. And it worked out pretty well. I had the heavy hovered transport work up my left side to attempt to put some pressure on his objectives, while I'd had a charger move up the right side to cause some chaos through kind of a narrow canyon there. I will say that Brett had a really great thing he did is we had a gap that was exactly 2 inches between some trees and a hill, and he parked some units there as my heavy hover transport approached. And hover type vehicles cannot go through trees, and also it takes forever to go up a hill with a vehicle. So he had a very, very clever, very tactically great way of blocking me from advancing on that left side. And we had to fight it out for quite a bit before I had...
Alex, are you sure you don't mean Brad?
I mean Brett. I think his name is William, but he goes by Brett, I believe.
Oh.
Pretty sure. I think there was 4 of them.
Yeah, it was Bambridge.
Oh, William Bambridge. Okay.
Yep. A.k.a. Brett.
Oh.
Yep.
My bad.
Yep, so, yeah, Brett, not Brad. Brett did a really good tactic of doing that to keep me from getting his backfield. The other thing that kept me from doing any kind of sneaky objective was some SRM carriers parked in some woods there that were having great overwatch. In the end, the Charger did a really good job, so another shout out for the Charger here for 22 points at skill 3. It can either shoot for 2 damage at short range, which it's in most of the time.
Or
It'll
punch.
hit in the short range if it wants to most of the time because it has a 10-inch move or 15-inch sprint. Of course, can't shoot when it sprints. But it can do 5 damage on a charge attack, which is way easier to calculate now that they changed that in a recent errata. If you have an older book, make sure you look up the errata for charge attacks. It's size plus TMM divided by 2. Although you might take some damage back charging something big still. Or it can just do a regular melee attack for 4. So Chargers cause a lot of chaos with that, and they have a lot of armor as well for only 22 points. So if you want something to cause chaos in your list, add a Charger. So I moved up the right side and caused some chaos as he was approaching through a little canyon there, while the field medics and J27 were at home covering the bases, covering up the objectives to try to prevent anything from sneaking by and getting on them. Again, a 1 PV insurance policy on the objectives. 1 PV units. Not a great fan, but using the tools I'm given. It was a good game. Able to whittle it down. SRM carriers came out. We had a really big battle in the middle, really fun battle. But in the end, I had just enough stuff to get through and capture the 4 objective points. Another great game. Another taco truck in the books. Another franchising opportunity. It's a great game.
All the tacos. All right. Last match of the day. Game 5, King of the Hill.
Sorry, I got one more thing to say for my 4th game. I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to Brett for the headshot on the Chimera. I think this is the only game my Chimera came in. It took a brave jump right into the middle of his forces to try to get some short range damage, and blam! Had a great ammo. I think it was an ammo explosion actually that took out that Chimera right in the middle as it came out to make its debut. So great job on that, Brett. That was awesome.
Yeah, those lucky crits. They kind of change your plans very drastically.
No plan survives contact with the enemy.
Or back-to-back 12s. Or a 12 and a snake eyes.
All right. Game 5, King of the Hill. Dave.
So I played Joey, and as we saw as a picture that was posted up on Wolfnet, my Ares actually made it to the middle. So Joey and I kind of played King of the Hill the way King of the Hill is meant to be played, and we just both ran to the middle. I brought my Scaffas up there with the Kukulanes, and he was Jade Falcon, I believe. And he got his heavies up to the center, so we were starting to duke it out. He was playing a little on the outside of the objective area token. He got the first, I think I got the first point. He got the second point. And then we I think he got the third point as well. And when the Ares finally got there, I think he had one of his light mechs was left, and my Scaffas had gotten behind his other mechs and taken them down. And at the end of the game, I still had I think 2 more points that I had to get, but there was no way that he could outmass me. So we just agreed that we were going to end the game because I was just not going to shoot at him and get the last 2 objective points, and then we'd finish it on the last one. And so he got to save a little bit of his MOV. I think I walked away with 164 MOV, and he got, I want to say, I think he got 70 of my stuff, because I think he got the Kukulanes, and he might have gotten one of the Scaffas also. But at the end of the day, it was an Ares, an almost fresh Ares sitting on the objective area token, and with the Ares with a turret, there's no way a size 2 or size 1 unit is going to do enough damage in any appreciable amount of time to take that unit down. So I won by sheer force of weight, I suppose.
Which is the whole point of it, for scoring at least. The Truffle Shuffle.
The Truffle Shuffle made it to the middle and then sat there.
As was designed. All right. Alex, King of the Hill, how was it for you?
Right, so for my 5th round, King of the Hill was against Jesty from the Southern California area of the country. He had an awesome, excellently painted and display board Scorpion Empire or Scorpion Imperio list. So train placement approach for this, we're playing on the city map. So there's a lot of level 2 and up terrain there with lots of buildings. A few of them were level 1 only, but most of them were big enough to hide an entire mech behind. General strategy here was to slow down Jesty's access to the center while trying to provide myself cover to the center. However, we ended up mostly with a pretty much symmetrically city layout, so props to those city designers who designed this perfectly balanced and excellent city. The game approach pretty simple. Wanted to get in close and win attrition. I brought a Avatar, Sunder, Charger, a Skill 2 Tokugawa, and the Heavy Hover Transport with the Heavy Infantry and the 2 Field Medics and J-27. So we all moved out towards the middle. Jesty went in for a quick into the middle in the first turn, I believe, or second turn was it. But the Skill 2 Kokugawa was able to take that unit out before he was able to score, quite fortunately. From then on, we had a really big battle between his jumping Behemoth and the Fire Scorpion facing off against what I had left there with he had an on-her VTOL scurrying around as well, getting back shots on a lot of my stuff and causing some of my units to have to chase it around a little bit. But yeah, it was definitely just all metal in the middle for us here with my Heavy Hover Transport and the Heavy Infantry chasing around an artillery-equipped Oler he had that was also putting a lot of hurt on my closely grouped together units in the middle. In the end, it ended up going my way and ended up coming away with the victory on this one as well. This is another scenario where the Charger shines really well because you get a size 4 unit at either skill 2 for 18 points or at skill 3 for 22 points that can cause a lot of chaos, attract a lot of attention in the middle, and also be size 4 for the purposes of King of the Hill balance. Another great game for the 5th game of the day. And also, Jesty, thanks for the awesome Pizza Palace buildings too. Those were great as well.
All right, so let's see. Dave, you ended up finishing, what was it, 10th? 10th. Alex came away with the number 2. Colorado came away with a podium. So congrats. Thanks for representing and doing Colorado proud. I was at the bottom. Thanks for bringing away a W for the Colorado gang. Let's see. Alex, you were voted numero uno for the paint. You want to talk about your paint scheme and your little diorama real quick?
Yeah, sure thing, I will. But there's one thing I actually meant to mention in my opening salve at the beginning of the podcast I want to go through. So I put together a bunch of statistics about the Colorado players here. I posted them on our group, but I want to read it out loud for everyone else here too, because we're talking a little bit about the stuff I've done here, but we all, as a collective group, did quite a bit. So for the 10 total players we brought, we had 97 objective points, out of all 10 of us. 6097 margin of victory, that's the amount of points for PV destroyed, which is probably higher than elevation most of us live at. I know Colorado Springs downtown's at 6035 feet of elevation. We had 2 of the top MOV scores. I think it was myself and Charles. Charles had 755. I had 752.
Murderer.
Yeah, lots of destruction for sure. Yeah, so we had 3 players in the top 10 as well. I believe that was myself, Charles, and David. We had second place for the AS350 singles. That was me with the best painted as well. But also, don't forget our first place finish, of course, with Max and Matt. That's one that we got to make sure we remember too. Max and Matt with first place in the first ever inaugural AS350 doubles tournament on Saturday.
Look, we don't want to remember that last game, do we, Ben?
No, that was a rough game, man.
That was rough. That was
That was a rough game.
Yeah, don't forget to mention also we had the most Aries brought, super heavies, 5 total, I think, between Ben,
we were
David,
the only Aries there.
Yeah, bunch of big old fat boys here.
That's right.
The best miniatures painted in the hotel room the night before. I think Mike's already talking about this a little bit, but amazing looking Kellhounds for the amount of pressures put under that speed painting there. Speed painting competition would be Mike, I think, for sure. And then also most number of matching outfits from the Colorado crew in general. All of you guys with the cool green and black jerseys that y'all had for the Valhalla Club podcast crew. So anyway, all right. Now that I've gone through my giant list of statistics there that I wanted to let everyone hear about, I guess we can talk about some painting and stuff.
No one will ever think that you're not a field grade officer.
Oh, really? Why is that? Too many
Spreadsheets
and statistics.
Did you make a PowerPoint?
Yeah, I did, but I need to catch it up a little still. It's never done. Yeah.
No, it's an Excel sheet with all the formulas and whatnot to auto calculate.
Hey man, leave my 200 device that I use to build all that shit alone.
I thoroughly rely on Excel to build out my 200s and all that other stuff. Yeah.
I think it's also something neat is that Alex, you and I think of our group had the most difficult people to play. So you had your strength of schedule was 0.52 and mine was 0.6. And I think the highest...
Mine was 0.6 too.
Was yours 0.62?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's Ben. So the 3 of us had played some of the more difficult people in the day. So I think from looking at this, the most difficult person who played was John Colton. He had a 0.68 strength of schedule, and he finished 7th.
That's interesting. I focused a lot on AS350 is kind of weird where you can be in the championship game. Shout out to Goolsby here, and just based upon number of objective points as a tiebreaker, not end up getting second place or even on the podium, which is, I guess, kind of one of the artifacts of how Swiss system works. And I mean, we could talk about whether that's fair or not. I do keep that in mind. I didn't even play in the championship game and came in with second just because of how it works. But I really focused on, I didn't even play anyone in the top 10 except for David, and to David I lost. But I guess I didn't really take into account how a lot of the other players I faced probably were in the higher end of the bracket still to keep strength of schedule a little bit higher. So maybe I'll bring down my imposter syndrome a little bit, keeping that in mind, possibly.
No, you did not have the easiest group of people to play.
Yeah, Goolsby dropped because that final game was him and Mario, so that was first and second, and he dropped down to, after that game, 6th. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you can find a way to get objective points, even if you're going to lose, really pays dividends if you just even sneak in 1 or 2 as you go along the day.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you have really a loss, it brings you down a lot for sure.
In this system, the objective points are what win the tournament. It's just, that's the way it is. So I mean, you can be like Charles and you get freaking 755 MOV, but you're still 5 points out of the top bracket. And like even me, I was only at 13 objective points. So I mean, Mario crushed everybody. I think he got every objective point that he could because he finished with 20.
20 out of 20, that's right, yeah. I was at 18 out of 20 myself in second there. I think that Tommy behind me might have had 16, I believe. going off memory.
He had 15. Phil finished with 14. Ed with 12. Sean with 11. And then John Colton with 16. Charles with 15. Matt Behrens at 14. Me at 13. And that rounds out the top 10.
Well, I guess that was kind of a big departure from talking about painting.
A little bit.
Should I keep going, or do you want to reintroduce this, or how do you want to play it?
You just keep going. It's cool.
Cool. Yeah. So I was really honored to have earned the rest of the players' votes for best painted. I took a lot of pride in this part of it. Hobbying and lore, some of the things I like the most about BattleTech. Not name any names, Charles Gideon might say that I used lore as a cheat to kind of squeeze out some extra votes. So I guess I'll talk a little about what I did here. I had a 1x1 terrain board that was showing the last known recorded history of the 12th Ghost Regiment of the Draconis Combine. So for those who do not know, the Ghost Regiments of the Draconis Combine were formed kind of leading up to... It's covered in a lot in Heir to the Dragon, the book. I think the forming of the Draconis Combine, if any of you guys are novel fans. But Theodore Carita wanted to bring some of the kind of organized crime, Yakuza-type people in the Draconis Combine into the military fold and organization, giving them a little more legitimacy, I believe. So they have a lot of very elaborate, very cool paint jobs amongst them. Some of them have like serpent tattoos across the entire mech. Some actually look like cherry blossom trees, which are a very big thing in Japan. Cherry blossom trees blooming in the bright pink fashion. The one I ended up going with the 12th Ghost Regiment. Their official canon camo scheme is a dusky gray with a black star field across the mech, typically going down from the right shoulder downward, with 12 cycles of the moon emblazoned across them. So that's what I decided to go with. I want something that kind of push my limits as a painter a little bit. Also tried working in two-tone cockpits for the first time. But it was a decent amount of work, and all Iron Wind's metal force, which we all know Iron Wind's metals has its own challenges. And the lore bit that this was centered around was how on the planet of On Ting, they had given the 12th Ghost Regiment gave up the dropship to allow some civilians to escape as the world was being condemned by the Draconis Combine for an outbreak of a engineered virus that got there from Galadon 5, which is a neighboring planet a few systems down. I put a pretty detailed scenario thing together of how I ended up doing the painting of the maps, about 11 steps or so. Everything I've done is on the backs of other people. You know, I'm definitely not I'm not a camo specs painter. I'm not anything like that. And everything I learned was basically from people like Camo Specs, and I think maybe a little bit of Duncan Fisher technique. So I try to put as much of that together as I can to pass along to other people. And I have it in my giant tournament report PDF. If anyone's looking for it, hit me up, and I can make sure you get a copy of it if you're interested in learning more about it and seeing some pictures. Yeah, so dropship's blasting off while all of my units are standing in front of it, kind of Xing out of the dropship into the great unknown across a river with a bridge over it. And, you know, the VTOLs and the hovercraft are kind of cruising down the river while everything else is marching out to see what happens to this barren planet as it's cut off and isolated from the inner sphere. So I'm really honored, and thank you for those who voted for me. I appreciate it. There's a lot of really great competition there, and I think also some technically better painters for sure in terms of the mech color. I think I was able to dog and pony show it up with the terrain board and the lore to steal some votes there. But there's definitely some other people that deserved it as much, if not more than me. So I'm really humbled and honored by that.
I would say, don't sell yourself short. The fact that your bases matched and integrated into that terrain board was awesome.
It's another thing too, I guess. Terrain boards I don't think are as popular in BattleTech yet, but some other systems, you know, I know a lot of the 40K guys have terrain boards. There's other system I play called Kings of War where a lot of people have terrain boards for their armies, and you can do some really cool stuff. And BattleTech, I think, is really primed for that kind of terrain board action, since the scale is great, so you can fit a lot of interesting stuff on the board because the units are a little bit smaller. And we also have so much lore to pull from if you want to like recreate a scene. We've all seen the Gen Con dioramas with like the text talk BattleTech or voiceovers of them, and how cool those are. You know, it's it's a little bit more work to do, but it's a great way to bring your stuff to life. And if they want to do a terrain board, I recommend you go for it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to do that part of the hobby.
All right. Well, again, congratulations on winning Best Painted. The entire diorama that you had looked amazing. So again, congratulations. Well earned and deserved. Any other closing remarks for LVO in general or the 350 tournament in general before we move on?
So I think I was a little caught off by the terrain elements that they put into it. They weren't bad. They added a little bit of interesting flavor to the games, but like Alex, I think I still would have preferred just regular forests because, that's what we were prepared for. So I think, I don't know, they were a cool flavor, but I could have gone either way on them.
Yeah, I think every map that had snow or mud, anything that involved bog down, it was obviously placed on the board because it had to be. It was part of the available terrain for that map. But I don't know. I mean, well, at least out of my games, at least, whenever that stuff was placed down, I just never went in it. I just avoided it. But yeah, so, but I mean, it made for amazing looking maps. They definitely looked great. But yeah, I don't think it was heavily used in the intended manner. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's those additional rules that people normally don't use on a regular basis, and if you're not kind of prepared for them, you kind of just go, let's just stick this over here in the corner where nobody's going to go, kind of thing,
Yeah.
I think I only used.
We did that, yeah.
I think I used one time the snowfield, or the whatever it was. It was the tundra map, I think, that had a snowfield on it, and the only thing with that is you could get a mech in there that uses overheat, and the snowfield will dissipate that heat in that turn. So that's kind of a neat little thing to do with it. But aside from the mud and everything else,
yeah, I didn't really have to deal with any of that. I was stuck on the moon board for 3 out of 5 games. So,
well, I think too, what really hurts the additional terrain that includes the bog down and everything else that was brought out for the LVO tournament was their 2-inch gap rule. All terrain has to have a 2-inch gap around it from other terrain. So that just enables you to avoid it.
Right.
Without that, you could easily put that mud bog or deep snow in a choke point to force someone through it and then actually use those rules. But with the 2-inch buffer, you can just avoid it. But yeah, so I think that's the drawback to those types of terrain.
What would you guys change out of your list if you had to do it over again?
I would get rid of one of the Ares. I would probably drop the Zeus, because the Zeus is nice having that 8 medium range and a 4 overheat, but I use the Hera a lot more often, and by dropping the Zeus, I could get probably 2 medium mechs that would be add a little more flexibility to the list, or just drop it for something like that Dayashi that has the 5 flak on it. But I think, honestly, from what I saw at LVO, we use VTOLs a whole lot more here than what I saw at LVO. So I think I probably would have dropped it for the medium mechs and just added a little bit more, maneuver flexibility in my list.
Speed.
Right.
We're going with maneuver flexibility. Thank you very much.
I think I would probably wait a few minutes and hope that someone makes it so I can't take field medics anymore and not bring field medics. So I'm gonna pontificate on this for a couple minutes here. I know we're getting a little long. Sorry.
No, you're good.
It's all good.
So everyone's familiar with icing the kicker in football, right? So for those who are international, maybe don't know, right? The idea when a place kick is happening for something like a 3-point attempt in American football, you can call a timeout right before the play of the snap. Kicker might overpressure, might think longer. So we have a tactic for icing the kicker, right? Which is legal. It's statistically proven to make the kicker about 10% more likely to miss the field goal. but it's also very, very universally derided by all the fans. Like, I don't think there's any fan that goes to a football game like, man, I can't wait till they call that timeout and ice the kicker. It's going to be a really great play. Like, no one's looking forward to that tomorrow at the Super Bowl, right?
Right.
I agree with you. I think that I would really like to see an addendum where 000 units are eliminated. So
well, they're combat ineffective, right?
Yes, that's the thing. So I can see.
I'll contest that point in a second.
Yeah, I'm going to test that one too.
I know. So yes, a flatbed can ram things. It can do 3 damage, which I still think is stupid because there's no way an F-150 is going to run into the side of an Abrams and the Abrams tank is even going to care. The field medics, yes, I think they're stupid. I think it would be great, especially now with the infantry points adjustment, to see a 5-point and below or a 4-point and below ban, because even your foot platoons, they're still about 5 points. I don't know that anything below 5 points really has a point on the table other than to, cause a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Be an initiative sink.
And I say that because I brought 2 units that were 3 PV each, and they were completely, they weren't totally useless. My Black Wolves actually did a successful anti-mech attack, and I thought that was hilarious for a skill 7 unit to actually successfully do an anti-mech attack. But they hit that bad feeling kind of part of the game, because it's why they're there. They're there to sink initiative. They're there to do nothing really other than either block a bunker entrance or or just run into you and then die, or take up an initiative slot. So yeah, I think the game would be improved by not allowing those units.
Yeah, man, they're just way too good for 1 PV, right? Initiative sinks what we talk about all the time, right? But I've killed things with a field medic. A 1 PV unit has taken down a thing with that star 0 damage, And there's super cheap way to hold down an objective, or especially on what's it called? Hold the line. They can hold down an objective and spend at least one more turn to get that thing to move out of the way so you can go and take the objective.
But I would have to say there has to be an exception to that because of the J-27. Because that's the only way right now that you can get a onboard artillery trailer onto the table.
Right.
You have to bring a J-27.
Yeah.
Which costs at most 2 points. Maybe 3 if you skill it up to like skill 2, which no one is ever going to.
Or you take the armor variant, which it's a 4-point.
I mean, yeah, you could do that. You could take the armor variant and skill it to skill 3 and make it cost 5 points. So I mean, that is an option, but I don't know that everybody has access to the armor variant.
Right.
I do kind of think it's a little bit of crap that your the field medics have an anti-mech special. Like, so you're going to carry around you're going to carry around satchel charges and all your medical gear. No, you're not.
Oh, they got a security element.
Well, then that's a separate unit card, Ben. Medics aren't carrying all that bullshit.
Yeah, well, true.
But not a big fan that medics can anti-mech attack. That's just me.
I just think in general, the medics, the flatbeds, and the other stuff, they should. I hate to say to put them on the ban list, but I think they need to be. Because I think that they are more of an abusive mechanic than they are useful to the game.
Fully agree. They just can do too much for 1 PV. I would auto include them every time. I tried to make mine a little bit bigger profile with a little medic tint on them. So maybe if someone wants to shoot them, they have easier time shooting them. My little tiny bone to throw back to my opponent. But I mean, it is just, 1 PV that can do so much. I would take 50 field medics over an Atlas in the way it's currently written. Sorry.
All right. So, go ahead, Ben.
I was gonna go through the recommendations going to a big con.
Yeah.
Was this Alex and Dave? Was this your first big con?
It was my first and only con so far.
And yeah, this was my first big con as well. Yep.
What did you take away from the big con aspect of things?
I'd rather go to Gen Con. I mean, Vegas is nice, but I don't see the appeal in Vegas itself. And I think it would be more fun to go to a convention that is either more broadly catering to a lot of different games than, I mean, obviously LVO is primarily Warhammer focused, and then you have a couple other small tournaments going on. Like you had X-Wing and Legion and a couple other smaller games there as well as us. But the vendor area was really small. And it was almost all Warhammer focused. So it would have been, I think, more fun from an investment standpoint to go to Gen Con or Adepticon, because there's more focus on the game that we're there to play. So for me, that's my suggestion: is skip LVO, go to Gen Con or go to Adepticon.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd do LVO again. I had a great time, don't get me wrong, but as the only mini game that I'm remotely into, I mean, I at least want to go to a con that's got a CGL presence. The lack of the CGL presence kind of made me a little sad face. So I'll try to get to Gen Con because I know they'll always be there. I don't know if I can go this year. I will try. But at the very least, I'll probably be able to swing next year. Who knows? That's a year and a half-ish away. But, yeah.
Yeah, Gen Con and Adepticon are definitely out for me this year because I came back and gave my wife COVID. So, yeah, she was not super happy about that. So,
boo on you.
Yeah, on her birthday weekend. So, yeah, that's going to take some lot of goodwill points to be built up over the next year to go to another con.
Man, you got a lot of brownie points to earn now.
What about you, Alex? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think you guys have taken a lot of the words right out of my mouth here. The Vegas part I did like a little bit of getting to do some of the casino games beforehand. I like playing, losing money at craps a little bit every now and then. So that was kind of fun to do that, but I came into this with the perception that it's a big tournament people are traveling to. It'd be some kind of a giant competitive, dare I say, even worried about power gaming experience. We hear a lot about the winning list at these cons, and for the last 3 histories of even the AS350 system of what the winning list looked like, and I'm just spending a lot of time thinking about how to make sure that I can actually win something. But really, most people are bringing pretty normal lists right now, like nothing like too crazy out there or fun. So it ended up not being as competitive as I thought in terms of really out there edge case stuff. So that's really nice. But I definitely agree. Adepticon or Gen Con would be great. There's a couple other systems that I would like to play as well, like Kings of War or this naval fantasy game I have too. And also those cons have a lot of good demo events to do if you want to just try out something you've never tried before.
Yeah, I think that would have been a lot of fun to see too, because there wasn't any real, or maybe we just didn't look for it, but there wasn't really demos going on.
Right. Yeah. It's so much stuff to do different now. I mean, I'm really happy I went still. It was a lot of fun. Great to hang out off the board as well. Very fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was kind of surprised that we didn't see more power gamey lists, because, I mean, we see those around here a little bit, and it was fun to see just a real good mix. There wasn't like a single meta that everyone was running, and it didn't seem like, except for freaking Mario crushing everybody, that there wasn't a specific, like I said, there wasn't a meta that was winning everything.
So I guess it's like that Brooklyn Nine-Nine meme where Andy Samberg looks back at the camera and says, "Are we the baddies?" Because maybe we were the guys that were doing all the nasty meta stuff.
All right, well, Dave's running out of time here, so let's move on over into...
Bro.
What's up?
Way to call me out, bro.
Yeah, well, I don't know if everyone sees the chat, so I had to vocalize it, But Dave's running low on time, so let's move on over into Hobby Burnout, which is something myself, Alex, and me and Ben have talked about on and off over the past month or so.
True, so have I.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk about Hobby Burnout a little bit. And I figure we can start off with Dave since he's got the least amount of time available at the moment. So lead us off, Dave.
So for me, the thing that's been, I guess, pushing me a little bit has been running all of these tournaments lately and the events. So that's been my burnout, and it has been just there's a lot that goes into it, and you put a lot of yourself out there into running these events, and you put a lot of heart into it, and it's a lot of build up to a single day, and then sometimes you don't get what you thought you were going to get out of it, or you are pushed in a direction you didn't want to go. But for me, honestly, it's just been, I'm going to take a step back away from running events for a little bit here in Colorado, and I'm going to focus more on what I enjoy out of the hobby. So, like I've even been talking with Alex, we're going to start up a narrative type classic or Alpha Strike, and we're just going to play that for a while and just focus on what's fun to play. And I think that's the most important thing if you feel like you're getting burned out, is to figure out what it is that is burning you out and just stop doing that. So step away from that aspect of the game and focus on what you enjoy about the game. And for me, I just think I'm smoked on tournaments right now. I'm ready to get back to just the fun aspects of crazy BattleTech, whether it's classic or Alpha Strike.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Because I know I've voiced that a few times. So like here in Colorado, we've been really hard and heavy into the WolfNet 350 system for the last year and a half. Mainly because it's a great way to, for one, it's an easy to run rule set. It's already established. It doesn't require a whole lot of work. From a TO perspective, aside from building all the terrain for an event and whatnot. But as for, because WolfNet already did, 90% of the work, and that's in the rule set and everything else. From a TO perspective, it's just officiating and being the
officiation, the preparation, the organizing people, the venue.
But I think the majority of the work for like that tournament rule set is in the rules, and they did a great job with it. But here in Colorado, we've been so heavy into it for the last year and a half. I'm fried on the WolfNet tournament aspect. I don't have any qualms with it. We've just done it so much. So I'm just kind of tired of it,
And it does alienate people that are not into tournament play. And most of the BattleTech community is not competitive tournament focused, because it was never a game that was designed to be competitive. It doesn't mean it's not fun being competitive, and I have definitely enjoyed playing these tournaments, and I think they're a blast to go to. But I'm just ready to get back to some of the more narrative stuff.
Yeah, and I know there's you've got regular Alpha Strike, Classic. You can do the tournament aspect for Alpha Strike. They're trying to create a tournament aspect for Classic with the BTCC. But there's still so many ways to play it. There's the whole RPG side with Destiny and A Time of War. You can create your own campaign style with Alpha Strike or Classic, and be more narrative focused. And as an individual that I love the lore in the books. It's the only books I've ever actually enjoyed reading, and has ever retained my focus as a reader. So yeah, I'm looking forward to stepping away from the tournament side, doing some more narrative focus. I did thoroughly enjoy our what was it? The Battle for Black Earth. Because that was a narrative focus. It was Hexless Classic, which I really enjoyed. And that was a lot of fun. So stuff like that I can absolutely get behind. But yeah, I'm a little fried on the tournament scene. I mean, there's even times where I'll look at my little paint booth on the table here and see that I've got work to do, but I'm just like, yeah, I'm not feeling it, and I'll say that week after week after week, to where I end up only actually working on painting
And thus
wise.
the pile of shame grows.
And thus the pile of shame grows, especially as new force packs are coming out, and I'm buying them. But like, yeah, I've been working on these Kellhounds for months, and they're still not done, and it's just a matter of looking at it and be like, not feeling it. But yeah, so you don't want to, I don't know. My thought process died on that, but, Alex, what you got for some burnout?
Yeah, so my experience, I guess, is a little different. A lot of you fine gentlemen were investing a lot of time in doing stuff for the community and hosting tournaments and all the stress with that. I didn't really have a chance to take part in as much of that with work schedule and reserves schedule and stuff, other than just adding some token terrain and a mini here or there for painting. Mine was mostly about, I think, but still a lot of similarities in the overuse of the system. We started this process of all kind of group chatting and talking about our lists and really dominating a lot of what we were doing in BattleTech with just AS350 all the time only. And I ended up just feeling I got so far away from the stuff that brought me into the system in 2019, which was, some good friends sitting around a table, playing through a narrative scenario, enjoying all this rich lore that we have in the universe. Other things that were contributing to me, just, I had a sense of guilt, like I needed to always be preparing for this tournament coming up. And I learned, that it was a Games Workshop focused event and all worries about competitive stuff, all these worries about winter travel. David mentioned all the worries about the hotel being maybe not everything we thought was up to be. Caring about it felt like every week or so there's some kind of strange tactic you could use, like the VTOL drop and then partial cover behind the VTOL in front of a bunker tactic to make it impossible to hit someone on the infiltration of a bunker. Other tactics like that's rampant, like obviously things like worry and haggle about, and I just got to a point where I was thinking like, man, like how did I get this far away from what we did? And I've been following the system since I heard about it on the Wolfnet podcast in either 2019 or 2020. I think it was probably 2020, and played a lot of games in the beginning. I was just getting really worried about it, and so some things that helped me out with that was just first of all, the group chat that we had, a lot of encouragement from everyone. Encouragement that, it'd be fun to be there, not just for the tournament. Remembering that it's about being there in community, not always about winning. I had a lot of, I guess, cognitive dissonance or things I couldn't quite square in my head. Like, all right, purpose of a competitive tournament or whatever is to go out and win. But I built this nice list that, ended up, it sounds kind of dumb now because it came in second, but I was worried about not like doing like any good at all. Because like worried all about trying to win and stuff. But there was things I knew that were wrong with it, like things I knew that were not like the best list it could be. But I wanted to go with this. So like, why am I doing all this work for a list that I know is not going to be like even have a chance at doing any well? Which ended up being kind of a silly
As the second place winner.
Yeah, right. Ended up being kind of a dump right there. But so kind of like worrying and guilt stuff about all that. So the encouragement from all of y'all helps. I reduced the complexity of the trip a little bit by shortening it. And my wife didn't come with me. Originally, she was going to come. We were going to do some Vegas stuff. I know that some people at the tournament did a really good job making it work with family or friends out there, wives and kids out there to do other stuff off the table. But, I was just getting all worked up to like how to balance it all. And well, I'll go to a tournament to hang out with the community, but at the same time, I'm trying to balance that with wife time for making it a family trip as well as community, and just going through all that in my head just was stressing me out a little bit. No kind of hits on either my friends or my wife by any means, but it's just a lot of responsibility and stuff to balance, as I know all you family guys know. Getting some rest also before making too rash of a decision. I was ready to cancel like my flights and try to get refunds on my tickets at one point in time in December, but I waited about a week. At the time I was on some night shift work, and that was always a lot of fun during the holidays, and ended up kind of coming to my senses a little more. I reminded myself that, there's other game systems out there, other ways to play Alpha Striker out there. I got in a couple of games that were not AS350 in that time before leading up to it. That helped balance me out a little. Some like very much more casual things, some more lore driven things with my campaign with Jake that we're doing. We brewed some mead and did some BattleTech. And then also just playing other games as well, like balancing it out and trying out some other games for a little bit. So Cooler Heads prevailed. I went. It was a blast. If you've committed to going to a tournament, you probably committed for a reason. My recommendation is don't be so quick to back out. Think about things, talk to some friends, rebase yourself, and things will be good. As Hank Hill said in one of the King of the Hill episodes, but maybe Bobby is onto something with this. It's okay to feel good stuff. That was a meme I put in my little tournament report there.
So Ben, what do you got for some hobby burnout? What's been on your mind of late?
Well, I've been in this game system for a long time, and I know there's a lot of different options out there, and I know Alex, you hit on that pretty well. Is you just got to kind of take a step back and go, why am I doing this? Why am I getting stressed out about a game? And this is not what brought me into the game, kind of thing. There's a lot of different mindsets out there about how to play the game. And that's kind of the beauty of BattleTech is there's so many different options that you have to play the game. But if you find yourself to the point where you're getting like, I hate this game, I don't want to play this game anymore, this is a stupid game, these rules don't make any sense, then maybe take a step back and just go, all right, what brought me into the game? I like big stompy robots. Cool. Let's just go do that shit. Let's just go have a good game where we sit around and drink a beer, eat some pretzels and just have a good time. The tournament scene, I've been playing in the tournament scene for about 2 years now. I'm traveling different cons and the people I've met have been fantastic. It's been a great time, and a lot of good players are out there. But I think it just gets to a point where you expect one thing going into a tournament, and this is one of the talks I had with Max when we were at LVO. Was in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, there's really two different types of players in a tournament scene. There's the player that is building a list because they want their list to place top 5, top whatever, That's what they're looking at. They're looking at the metas. They're looking at the, 1PV, medics. They're looking at the initiative syncing. They're looking at the edge case of rule systems and stuff like that.
Running all the math to find out which is legitimately more effective by 1 to 2 PV.
Right. There's players that enjoy that type of stuff, and good on them, But I think there's the second type of player is the player that just builds a list because they think it's going to be cool, or they want to see this mech on the table because they don't really see it that often, or they don't get to play with it as much, or they want to try out, different combinations because they've never messed with VTOLs, or they've never messed with a lot of artillery or something like that. So they want to try that out just to see how it'll work. And they have in their head that it's going to do a certain thing, and then they run up against a guy that is the edge case meta player, and it turns into a negative play experience, and I don't know what the right answer is on that. I don't know how to tackle that problem, and in my mind, it is a problem because the players that are just going to play and have a good time are getting stomped on by the guys that are there to win. We all want to win. We all want to do the best we can with what we got, but
losing every game sucks.
It does. And that was my experience at Battle Barn last year when I went to Indy, and I think I lost every single game, and it came down to me and Tommy fighting it out for the very last spot, who was going to take last place, and we were 17th and 18th, I think, or something like that, something dumb. And we just got to a point where, like, you know what, screw it, we're just gonna have a good time, and let's get drunk. What else can we do at this point?
Yeah.
So it just turns into that type of stuff where I don't know tournament wise if that's the way to go for a lot of players that are just looking to have a good time, it can be negative for some players, for some people, and you've got to know yourself a little bit to know what you're getting into with that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, I think 98% of the BattleTech community, at least, 90 to 98%, players within that large percentage will adjust their play style real quick within those first 1 to 2 turns, or even before they even deploy their units, because they know generally the type of player that they're facing,
right.
and they don't want that opponent to have a poor experience. So they'll make different decisions to where it's still a good game, a close game, and it's just not a steamroll event.
Yeah, and that's something I know. I don't know if I brought up in the last podcast or it's the last couple of weeks is all kind of running together for me. But I know Charles and myself and Matt talked about it a lot on the car ride back. You know how, especially in the tournament scene, where you're going up against a top player that's out there to really win kind of thing, and then the next round you go to a brand new player and you don't want to as a veteran player, I'm not going to say I'm a good player, but as a veteran player that knows the rules pretty well and knows what I can do within the rules, but my moral compass doesn't allow me to do some things because I'm just like I don't want to go down that road. But going from playing a player like in my first round, I played Mario, where it was a very tactical game, and we're both pretty decent. We played each other on several occasions. To going to play a new guy that's been in the Alpha Strike scene for about 2 weeks, it's kind of a mind switch where you've got to kind of dial back what you can do and not turn it into a negative play experience for this new player. And then the next turn or the next round, you're up in the top bracket again. You're playing somebody that's really into the edge case piece. So it's that mental switch that you have to go through between your different players you're playing in a tournament is something that some people can do and some people just don't. So that's kind of where I don't know what the right answer is, but it comes down to, I think, the piece of why are you playing the game? What got you into the game? What do you enjoy about the game? And if tournaments are not what you enjoy about the game, then play something else. Go back to the narrative campaigns, go back to the narrative scenarios, go back to just a pickup game of, hey, bring 10,000 BV or 500 PV and let's play an Alpha Strike or a classic game or something.
Yeah. I know I've seen a few comments over the past couple months on various Discord servers of people almost ready to rage quit. And it's just like, please don't, take a deep breath, take that step back, look at what you love about it. There's more than one way to play the game. And if the person that you've been playing against is kind of like the reason that you're kind of getting fed up with it, well, find somebody else to play with. You know what I mean? Because there are individuals that treat every pickup game as a tournament, and it's nothing but min-max every single time. And me personally, I hate that. I'm not a big fan of every match being like that min-max case, or like, oh well, I measure, like I'll hover my measuring tape above these units, and then my opponent says, oh well, that's 24.01. I measured. Like, but did you? Where's the micrometer? And now I'm just pissed off for the rest of the game.
Right.
And that's not fun.
It's not.
Like, especially as a pickup game, like, come on.
Yeah. And I think it's the evolution of the player. It's something you go through. I think every player goes through it at some point in their gaming career if they stick with a game system for very long. Where you start off learning the basic rule sets, and then you go, okay, well, we can min-max this to the point where, it's unstoppable. And you do that for a little while, and then you're like, well, this isn't as fun as I thought it would be, because, nobody else is really doing this. And then you go back to the just the base standard models kind of stuff and go, everything's got their little strengths and weaknesses, and you try and figure out those little pieces of it. So yeah, I'm with you, Mike. It's one of those things where, you know, you can have that piece of negative, you know, time with a player. But I think a lot of people too will say, well, you know, this is the only player I got in my area. And
Then
so
join
now-
our Discord and find another player and play on Mega Mech or Tabletop Simulator.
or like I say, find somebody you like and teach them how to play.
There's also that.
You know?
Spread the love. But like, yeah, taking that step away from the tournament scene, like going back to those larger PV games or switching back into classic mode for a bit. I mean, last month, me and Alex played the game where we added in some probably way too many optional rules to the, like we even talked about adding in battlefield support points, and then we ended up not using any of them. Like we forgot about them completely.
Right.
But like we were using formation bonuses, and over time I've come to like formation bonuses a little bit. Now I do have a personal rule of not of a limit of no more than one battle lance, because having more than one battle lance is not cool, because that's way too many lucky SPA rerolls. And Alex wasn't a big fan of it, and that's perfectly okay. But it's just communicating that, you know, and I think he had forgotten that he wasn't a fan of the
Yeah.
the lucky SPA with the battle lance, and like, and if until I re-rolled it, and he was like, "This is bullshit," and
Yeah.
and you know, so just remembering those things, that, and that's not to you know, shit on you, Alex, by any means whatsoever. I think it was still a good game, and it's easy to forget some of the things that you're not a fan of, especially when there's so many optional things you can add into a game. I mean, like, hey, I'm cool with formation bonuses, but not this one specific one. Like, okay, well then I just won't use that one, and I'll make a different style one. But there's so many optional ways, optional rules, so many ways to change up the game to make it not what pissed you off in the first place, or you know. So just taking that step back, adding in some of those optional things, changing game
I
styles.
shall consider myself not shit on. Sorry, you cut that back in earlier, I guess.
No, you're good. But you know, switching game styles from Alpha Strike to Classic, go back to that for a bit, like, or maybe even trying out the Destiny scene, or maybe just take a break from tabletop, go into, you know, the digital gaming of the aspect, or just a whole break on the gaming experience itself, but just go back into reading books for a month, like a month timeout from the gaming scene, but still staying somewhat current with lore or whatever. Like, you're still enjoying the universe in some way or shape or form. There's multiple ways to do it. But yeah, like, I'm taking a break from the after LVO, the Alpha Strike 350, the Wolfnet 350 tournament scene for a hot minute.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of large PV Alpha Strike games, like 500 plus. I think that's where Alpha Strike truly shines. Starting to throw in, I know me and Rick want to get some more people to start buying some more aerospace fighters, because it makes the game three-dimensional. And it's just,
I've got 8 of them. Hit me up. Let's do it.
Heyo.
I want to do some air-to-air battles.
Absolutely.
there we go.
You know, adding in that aerospace fighter aspect that not a lot of people do, it makes a fight three-dimensional, and it changes a lot of things real quick. The normal tactics you've been playing with for the last year and a half, 2 years, you throw in some aerospace fighters, well, you got a whole new game, because now you got to look up, you know, and really worry about covering your backfield and really focusing on your facing, so that somebody somewhere will be able to hopefully shoot this aerospace fighter that is harassing the hell out of you. So yeah, huge fan of aerospace fighters. Definitely try adding that in if you're getting a little bored with the normal Alpha Strike. Because let's be honest, I think aerospace fighters are easiest to employ in the Alpha Strike system. If you've been doing the same thing for so long, and it's kind of like the second you start your game, you kind of just zone out, drone out, and play the game you always have for the last year and a half. Maybe it's time to add in some optional stuff, or like the aerospace fighters, or environmental effects. Like change it up. There's a lot of ways to do it to keep it interesting. But yeah, that's what I got for general Burnout. Take that step back, maybe change it up a little bit, find a different opponent, whether that's online or locally, or teach somebody new. Like Ben said, get tied in with your local game store, host beginner events, pull in new players, because if you've only got one player in your area that you've been playing for so long, well, maybe it is time for an intro event at your local store to create new players to play with. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, anybody else got any other comments on the burnout aspect of the game, or just in general?
I want to loop back around to some stuff Ben was saying. So I don't know if you want to cut this in earlier or not, but man, I can't say how much I appreciate Ben, what you said about your statements about like how to be as a player and do stuff. I think you hit the nail on the head and gave me an epiphany on some of the stuff that I was going through. I was so worried on trying to avoid a negative play experience for myself, on having like a list that could take all comers and not be victim to some of the more crazy stuff, and not really thinking as much about how do I make sure, I can avoid a negative play experience for someone else. And, realizing that not everyone out there is going in with a big competitive mindset. I just think that your words on that were really, really good. I really appreciate those a lot. And I think that's something to really keep in mind a lot. Really great.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's until you, because I know you had a lot of guys that you played in the tournament that were really top notch guys. And
I had a good mix. I had some mix for sure.
Yeah, you had a mix, and it's just it hit me when I went from playing Mario to playing Patrick, who just picked up the Alpha Strike box set 2 weeks before the tournament, and he's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm like, all right, cool, man. Let's just make this a learning game, and we'll play it out and see what happens. And it's just, I had that thought playing him going, I know there's things that I can do to win the game, but I don't want to do that and ruin it for him, and turn him against what's going to happen. Not saying I'm the greatest player at all, one bit, but there's rules and shit like that a new player has no concept of yet, and not to say Patrick was bad at all. I mean, he was a good, solid Alpha Strike player, just for learning the game, but, just trying not to make him go away with a bad impression of the tournament scene. It's a hard line to kind of come up against sometimes.
That's super great too, because you have the veteran experience to where you can hang with the guys that are really top-notch competitive guys looking for a competitive thing, because there's nothing wrong with that being your kind of fun if you want to push it to the limit.
Right.
There can sometimes be something wrong depending on how you use it, maybe. But
true.
Also having the ability to flip that switch off, and play some of those a little more of a fun introduction, make sure someone doesn't walk away. That's super powerful and super great. I think if we could have everyone in the community play like that, that'd be like super awesome. Have that, be able to do both,
Right.
All right. Well, I guess that pretty much wraps us up for the day. Moving on into shout outs.
All right, so my shout out goes out to the guys at WolfNet. Thank you very much for putting on the LVO tournament. And yeah, it was a great time. We had a great time, and it was really great meeting everybody, especially the guys from Charlie Company. Overall, it was a great experience, and I'm looking forward to the next time I get to go out to a convention. Probably be next year, but we'll see what happens. And my shout outs go out to the WolfNet guys. Thank you very much for putting on an awesome event.
Alex, what you got for shout outs?
First of all, shout out to all y'all again for allowing me to join you and be on the podcast with you all. Shout out for Ben for all the PPC drinks. Definitely can't keep up with Ben's drink of the month when it's only PPCs. Whenever more than half my drink's grain alcohol, I think it's time for me to step back and wait for the next round to come out. I already mentioned the taco trucks from the Charlie Company folks that I played, Chandler and Brett during the tournament, and Jesse for the Pizza Palace buildings. And my main shout out goes out to the WolfNet team for throwing LVO again. But most importantly, all the years of love, I'm sure of the countless discussions, possibly arguments, playtesting, lessons learned that have led to ASWD being where it is. For all that we can talk about competitive scene and burnout and whatnot, it's doing a really amazing job of taking a system that I believe never really had a competitive intention for it and making it something quite workable and a ton of fun for tournaments. So that is something that's really paid off over the last, I guess, 4 or more years for you all. And there's a lot of heartfelt appreciation from the community for that. I guess last shout outs for the spider that's living in my mechs. I have some spiders built a web between some of my mechs in their display area in my basement here. And there's actually a dead one behind it. So I think it's the second inhabitor of the web that it spun. But yeah, so I got spiders with my mechs. That's my last shout out. I'll keep you updated on the progress on their life.
Time to put them on the field.
Yeah, that's right. That just means you got to get them on a list and start playing with them a little bit more.
No, can't do it. It's protected environmental zone now. They're endangered species. Red tape and whatnot. Can't move them anymore.
I was gonna say, when I came over, it was probably about a year, almost a little over a year ago now. I think that was because you had that K2, that catapult K2 on the table. Was that the last time it was used?
I'm sure. I think it's been out since then. But I'm not sure, to be honest. It could have been the last time. Hopefully not.
Time to pull it back out. All right. Well, I guess that wraps us up for the day. Thanks for joining us, Alex. Thanks for coming on the show and sharing your experiences. Again, congrats.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Congrats on Best Painted. It was well earned and deserved. Until next time. Thanks, everybody.
Last call.
Thanks for joining us today in the Valhalla Club. Special thanks to our sponsor, Ares Games and Miniatures. Ares is the premier online retailer for all your BattleTech needs. You can contact us at thevalhallaclub@outlook.com. If you are in Colorado, please join your local community group on Facebook and Discord. If you are able to help support your local Colorado BattleTech community, subscribe on Patreon to Colorado BattleTech. This Patreon account is used to supply prize support for local events and assist in venue costs. Links for the Valhalla Club Discord, the Colorado BattleTech Patreon, and Facebook group are in the show notes. Until next time, mech fans.
And somebody give WolfNet shit for the fact that we're getting out 2 episodes before they even get out 1.
Yeah, it's part of the course.
I'll just cut that in,